Okay, this is the video where we walk through the steps for starting a new drawing. This is going to be maybe a little bit of a boring video, but there are a lot of little settings, a lot of background information that is important to know. But I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. But it's important stuff. All right, so what I want you to do is have handy the handout that accompanies this video. This will also be available, of course, on the portal. It's Starting a Drawing handout. Starting a Drawing in AutoCAD 2017. We're going to go through that step by step. Now, when you open up AutoCAD, this window comes up, and simple enough, you click on Start Drawing. You could find a recent document or go through this other stuff, but I never do. Click on Start Drawing. All right, so you come to this page, which you're familiar with now, and we're going to follow the steps in the handout one by one. So the first one is to save the drawing. So you go up to this icon up here, this old floppy disk, and click on Save. Now, of course, you need to have a place set up for this. I created a little folder here, and I'll call this Start a Drawing. Doesn't matter what I call it. Now, the file extension for any AutoCAD file is .dwg. Okay, you don't have to put that here; it will automatically put it for you. So I click on Save, and now you see up here after the address path, the name of the file is now up here. You want to save frequently. Next, units. As I showed you in the previous video, that you can draw in AutoCAD using many different types of units. If you type in the word units, a quick aside here, you don't have to click on the command line here ever. You don't have to click here and type in units, right? It knows, as long as it says type a command, that means you can type it anywhere. You just, my cursor is up there, I just type units, enter. All right, it's a good habit to get into. I see people many months in continuing to click on this command line. Don't have to do it. All right, we want to change the default setting, which is decimal, to architectural. If we were drawing in decimal, you would see 0.000, this kind of output. Your numbers will look like this. When you type in feet and inch symbols, it won't recognize it and you won't get very far. So you'll know if you forgot this step if the computer tells you it doesn't know what you're talking about when you type in feet or inch, the apostrophe or the quote marks. So you have to change it from decimal to architectural. When you do that, the base unit in your drawing is inches. Okay? You don't have to type the quotation mark ever, because if you type in a number, the computer, the program, assumes you mean inches. Okay? Now, if you're typing in feet, you have to type in the foot mark or the apostrophe, but we'll get into that later. After you change this setting from decimal to architectural, then precision is an important one too, but not right now. We don't have to really worry about this precision, but might as well get into the habit of changing it to 1/32. When we start using text, this precision will be important. Okay, our base unit is inches, and we measure degrees by decimal degrees rather than degrees, minutes, and seconds, grads, radians, whatever. decimal degrees. So we don't make any change there, and we hit OK. So we've changed our units. Next thing is to set the limits. Now I need to demonstrate something here first. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I do that by rolling the scroll wheel on my mouse backwards. I'm zooming out. Now some of you will have this icon in the lower left hand corner, the X and the Y. If you zoom out, it should start floating in the middle at some point. This is just a demonstration. If you're not getting that, don't worry about it. But what this symbol is, it's an indication of where the X and Y coordinates meet. If you're zoomed way out or in, the icon will just park itself in the lower left hand corner. But because I have this floating out in the middle here, it tells me that that this is the origin point of this organizational system used in this AutoCAD environment. You'll remember from high school geometry, the Cartesian coordinate system has an x-axis, which is here, and a y-axis, an x-axis and a y-axis, and where they meet is the origin. It also has a z-axis, which comes at you or goes away from you. It's the vertical dimension, and that you would use if you're doing 3D work. But for now and for 90%, 95% of the class, we're going to just work on the XY plane, the two-dimensional drafting plane, which is defined by these two axes. Now, any point on this coordinate system can be defined by its X and Y value. So you can maybe be a foot over here and a foot up, and this point could be described as X equals 1 foot, comma, Y equals 1 foot. All right? I say comma because in AutoCAD you separate the two values with a comma. Now, when we set our limits, what we're doing is taking a piece of real estate within this environment, right? And in that little piece, we're going to be doing our drawing. This is an infinite space, so we find it a little bit more comforting to carve out a little place for ourselves. So that's our limit. Those are our limits. Now, in spite of the word, it's okay to draw a little bit outside of the limits. It's not going to change anything. But especially for zooming and so forth, it's a little bit more organized. And just to keep the file organized, we set limits. So to do that, we're going to type in the word limits. As with most commands, especially when you're starting out, you need to take a look down at the command line and see what it's asking for. I started the limits command, and it says specify lower left corner of the limits, right? So to define the limits, you're defining a rectangle here, right? And to define that, you define the lower left hand corner and the upper right hand corner, and that creates this rectangle. Rectangle that we're not going to quite see right away, so you have to be patient for that. But to answer the question here, specify lower left hand corner, I need to give the X value and the Y value, and at the origin point it's 0, 0. Notice when I type in the comma, the X value gets locked into place, and then you can type in the Y value. So I've done that. Lower left hand corner is 0, 0, and now it's asking for the upper right hand corner. The default value here between the less than and greater than symbols is 1 foot by 9 inches. I want to change it just to get practice doing that. So I'm going to type in 24, that's my X value, comma, 1 foot, 18, 24 by 18. Now I could type in 18, or I can type in 1 foot 6, same thing. Now if I type in 18, I don't have to put in the inch mark, right, the quotation mark. And just to point out something a lot of people do incorrectly, first of all, you never have to type in the inch mark, and if you do, don't do it like this. Don't type in the apostrophe and then another apostrophe. AutoCAD has no idea what that means. If it would be a waste of time, but if you needed to put the inch symbol in, use the shift key and click on the quote mark. But you don't need it. If you wanted to put 1 foot 6, type in 1 apostrophe. That's 1 foot 6, like that. So you see I'm mixing it up. Inches on the left, feet and inches on the right. It doesn't matter. It could easily be 24, 18. But I just want you to get this familiar with the units. So the upper right hand corner of the limits will be 24 inches over from the origin and 18 inches up. Alright, so there's no change on the screen, and that's for another reason we'll get to in just a little bit. Now the next thing on our list is settings for the status bar. The status bar is in the lower right hand corner down here. Now when you load up AutoCAD, it's been my experience that you never know what you're going to get when you start it for the first time. It's a very flexible program. Toolbars, buttons, commands, whatever can be in various places. Maybe they've started to get better about this and made it more regular. But you'll notice that everything can be moved around. Like I can move this toolbar over here if I wanted. I can move the command line wherever I wanted, right? But I want everybody to have the same screen so that you're not busy trying to find something when you're following a lesson. So we want everybody to be looking at the same thing. Also, if you had all of the options on the screen, it would be just a lot of clutter. So I'm going to talk about the status bar in the lower right hand corner here, and we're going to make sure that it's set up the same throughout. So the first thing to do is make sure you have the buttons down here that you need. In order to do that, you want to click on the button all the way to the right, the 3 horizontal lines. Click on that. Now when I click on it, you're only going to see a part of it. I apologize for that, but the portion of the screen that I'm making a video of doesn't include all of that. I don't know why they do that. It should be inside. But anyway, you can see enough of it, and also there's a copy of this in the handout. And so the items that have a check mark next to it are the items that will be down here in the status bar. So just to run through them quickly, coordinates will be off, model space will be on, grid will be on, snap mode will be on, infer constraints will be off, so no check, dynamic input on, ortho mode off, polar tracking on, isometric drafting off, object snap tracking on, 2D object snap on, line weight off, transparency off, selection cycling, 3D object snap, dynamic UCS, selection filtering, and gizmo are all off. The next 5 actually are on: annotative, visibility, auto scale, annotation scale, workspace switching, and annotation monitor. After that, the rest are off. Okay, so once you have those buttons up on the screen, now we can adjust whether these buttons are on or off, and then make other setting changes. So I'm going to just click somewhere on the screen here to get rid of that. Just to demonstrate how that works, if I, for example, didn't want the model space button here, if I uncheck it, it goes away. It's simple as that. Okay. So now following along on the handout, we're on page 2, adjustments to the status bar. This gives a brief description of the buttons and tells you what changes you want to do with them. So the model button, this switches you between model space and paper space. Some of you might have already clicked on it, so I have to show you what happens if you click on it, but don't if you haven't. There's no need to at this point. If you click on this button, you go to what's called paper space, and the button changes from model to paper. This is what we'll learn about later when we start printing. Okay, so I'm noticing an error here, a glitch that happens often, so I'll have to explain that later. But if you did happen to press on the model button and came into paper space, if you click on this again, it's not going to bring you back. It's going to put you in this other mode, which says model, but it's not where we were. You have to go down to the lower left hand corner and click on the model tab. So that's instructive anyway. That's good. If you ever get lost somewhere, click on the model tab down below. This is where we're going to be doing all our drawing with AutoCAD in the model space environment. Okay, next one. These two buttons here are grid mode and snap mode. I'll talk about snap mode in the future. That one's going to be turned off. Grid mode is going to be on. So this needs to be on, this will be off, and the downward facing arrow next to it, if you click on that, will bring you to a menu, and you'll see polar snap is on. That's the snap mode. And grid snap is on. That's the O snap. No idea why they give it different names here. It's just confusing. But that's what we want. But then snap settings are below. So I'm going to click on that. And we get this dialog box. Now, it's easy to get confused and flustered in AutoCAD because they often give you so much more information and flexibility that you need. So if you look on the left hand side of this, ignore all the other tabs above. We're just looking at the snap and grid. The left hand side is snap. That's off. AutoCAD decides to put them in different places here. The snap is on the right, grid is on the left, but in the window, snap is on the left, grid is on the right. Don't let it confuse you. Snap is off, grid is on. Now we're going to make changes to our grid. This box will be checked, and next on my handout anyway, I talk about changing the grid spacing. So we're going to skip down to here where it says grid spacing, grid X spacing. So the dots in this grid will be spaced how far apart. Well, we're going to change it from 1/2 inch, which is the default, to 1. So I just type in 1. I don't have to type in 1 inch. When I click on grid Y spacing, it automatically updates to 1 because usually your grid is a square grid. You could have a rectangular grid, but 1 by 1 is our grid. Now looking at the other changes we want to make. The grid is on, we have that checked. Then it says grid style, display dotted grid in 2D model space. That's what we want, so we want that checked. And moving down here, grid behavior. We want to uncheck adaptive grid. Adaptive grid is that weird thing which you've been seeing happen on the screen if you didn't notice it. When I zoom in and out, the grid actually changes. It doesn't just get bigger if you zoom in and smaller if you zoom out. It actually jumps to another spacing, which I think makes the grid very unusable. I want the grid always to be 1 inch by 1 inch. So I don't want it to adapt to whatever zoom factor I happen to be in. So I'm going to turn that out. That's confusing. Also, I'm going to uncheck this, display grid beyond limits. I'm going to uncheck that. So now the grid will only be within the limits that we defined. All right. So I'm going to do that now. I hit OK. And there it is. Now, this actually kind of rarely happens this way, that it's neatly right in the middle of the screen. Depending on how much you moved your mouse beforehand, you might be looking at something like this where you don't see any dots, or maybe here's a little stray dot here. Well, if you look on our handout, all the way at number 5, it says zoom all. This will help you get the whole grid on the screen. Just type in Z, enter. Z, enter. That's a zoom command. And then A, enter is the all option. A, enter. So it's zoom all. Now here's that glitch I was talking about before. For some reason these days, AutoCAD shows these two different grids. This is the one we want. And just look at that for a second. That's a grid. If you counted these, there'd be 24 spaces left to right, starting at the origin, going to the right, and 18 spaces coming from the x-axis upward. So 18 inches in the y direction. Now this, not sure why this comes up, but maybe this will fix it. Sometimes I can't get rid of it. But if you do get this, and I'm just including this in the video, I'm continuing with this video because some of you will likely get the same situation. Maybe if we click on that model space, paper space button, make sure now it says model. Don't do this if you haven't, if you didn't get this problem. But if you click on model and you have this white piece of paper, I'm going to double click inside here, and then I'm going to turn off the grid. I'm going to turn off the grid in this mode, and then I'm going to go back to my model space. There we go. I got rid of it. So a little confusing, but just click on paper space, click on it again to get model, and you get this environment, and turn off the grid and go back to model space here. Alright, so there is, zooming in and out with the scroll wheel. We'll talk more about navigating in another video, navigating around the screen. But there are my limits, and you see that it's to the right of the y-axis, and it's above the x-axis. It's 24 inches by 18. You can draw outside of the limits, but it's a nice way to keep things organized.